Welcome to episode 87 of Discourse in Magic with Sean O, or as you might know him from Instagram, Not Sean O. This guy's content, his photos, his videos, his cardistry is absolutely off the chains, and that's why he is the legend right now in cardistry and the content related to it. We chat all about what it's like to be a cardist in the modern world, connecting with people on the other side of the world through hashtags, and really everything that's going on in the world and subculture of cardistry. I hope that you love this episode. I know I did. Here it is, episode 87 with Sean O. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with a very, very exciting guest. This is somebody who is actually very funny, was recommended to us on an episode of the podcast, on an episode with Anna D. And I'm pretty sure that we reacted to checking out your Instagram page on the episode, and we just go absolutely ballistic. So I think that it is a very, very cool introduction if you want to listen to that episode and hear us go crazy. But I'm super excited to talk to the incredible, incredible cardist, Sean O. Sean, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, man?
We're doing very well, and
excited to have you
super
here.
Pumped to get into it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. So the first question that we usually ask is, how did you get into magic and then cardistry?
So, magic. I got into magic when I was 7 or 8 years old. I'm 20 now. I just turned 20 in July. My dad showed me like a dad card trick, you know? It was like
Uncle
any
Magic.
card trick. Yeah, it was like Uncle Magic except with my dad. And I was just so amazed by it, and it was just like, you know, like my card flips over in the deck and it's the only card that's flipped over. And I was just so amazed, and he wouldn't tell me how to do it because he was my dad. And then that year for my birthday, I was turning 8, he got me a magic book, and I read it cover to cover. And I was an only child too, so I had to do something.
Right. Yeah. No, that's something you hear a lot. You're either the youngest child seeking attention or the only child who is struck with boredom.
Who was lonely, yeah. So yeah, that was that. That's I got into that. I did my first paid show when I was 9 to my mom's coworker's son. His son was turning 5, and my mom thought it'd be a good idea to do a birthday show. And I'm sure it was really cute to watch, but I definitely know the material is, you know, what you'd expect from a 9-year-old. Anyway, I've always been interested in filmmaking and photography and that kind of thing. Both my parents worked in IT, so we had 5 or 6 or 7 computers around the house working at any given time. So I got a computer when I was 5 years old or something.
Wow.
Right.
And I was introduced to editing and taking photos and videos pretty early on too, because my dad was really into that as well. So I started filming some magic and putting it on YouTube. And my dad was helping me edit. And then I did a couple tutorials. And if you guys remember Miss Mag 822,
Yep.
he gave me a shout out on YouTube once. And that was when I started gaining, you know, thousands of people. And I was like 11 or 12 at this time now, and I was kind of like, oh, I guess I could just do this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I started seeing people not really doing magic, but just kind of like moving cards in a cool way, and that was really weird to me because, as far as I knew, you know, double lifts were supposed to be hard, and double undercuts were supposed to look messy. But then I was seeing all these people do not even magic moves, just it was just
moves.
shuffling and. Yeah, and I was like, what's going on here? One year for Christmas, I got the trilogy by Dan and Dave, and
Right.
that was the first time I saw card magic performed to a level where it was like flawless, and I actually started believing that it was not sleight of hand, but they were either wizards or demons.
Like comments
So-
on most YouTube channels.
Yeah, exactly. And then I checked out the flourishes section, couldn't do a single thing. But all of a sudden I knew this word, and it was cardistry. And I guess it was, the rest is history. Here I am today.
I feel like the trilogy really opened up that world to so many people when there was like tricks, flourishes, everything else. But the whole idea that there was a DVD for just this looks cool. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just impressive and extremely hard to do. Really,
Right.
I think pioneered this whole, shift into the world of cardistry that we're seeing, especially in
absolutely.
young people.
Yeah, and I remember, before even getting the trilogy, I would see XCM battles on YouTube.
I forgot about XCM.
Yeah, and there were these battles between these two people, and I was like, what are they fighting over? What's the battle here? But, it was all before Dan and Dave came into my life.
Yeah.
And that's so funny to see, and so cool that you mentioned that trilogy, because Tyler and I are very similar ages. We're 23 and 22, and you're 22, yeah?
Yeah, I'm 22.
Yeah, okay, cool. And it's funny because we were around when that launched and when it became public, and it's just funny to visualize that some people watched that trilogy and were propelled into what now is cardistry, and other people continued on a magic journey. So it's very cool to be able to visually see, I guess not visually, but mentally see somebody who has gone a similar path. I also started magic very early, but then took the road of cardistry and really ran with it to do some incredible stuff along with video and photo editing.
Right, yeah, it's really interesting to see those two people just all of a sudden create such a culture and such a world that like gives kids opportunities that they never thought they would have.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start by talking about really what's going on and what you're doing on Instagram. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, not only is it cool cardistry stuff, but really it's a lot of incredible work with photography and with videography. And it's, cardistry sort of seems to go hand in hand with video creating and video editing, and it seems like you're one of the sort of pioneers of mixing it with photos and photo editing, and it's just very, very cool to watch. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing on Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I just, I love, photos and videos, and I used to use Instagram like, anyone else. It was I guess like my freshman year, I think, in high school, where I posted my first cardistry video. In fact, you know what? It was 2014, exactly 3 years ago yesterday, because it was on Drake's birthday. One of the most
Happy belated, Drake.
Yeah.
And happy anniversary to you, I guess.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was, I guess, about 3 years ago that I posted a card video, and it was entering Pure Imagination Project's contest for the icon playing cards, which I ended up winning.
Dope.
But I got like a bunch of views, not just from my friends that were following me, but like a bunch of other people that did the same wacky thing with cards that I did. And that was the moment that I realized, like, oh, I should just put it here now instead of YouTube.
Yeah.
For me, Instagram is a lot less stress and a lot less, lower maintenance than YouTube, especially now. The way YouTube has gone, it's a photo, at the time, was just primarily a photo platform. And I already loved taking photos back then. So I figured, why not figure out how to do it on Instagram? And I started just from then uploading just cards. I posted the first video and got good feedback from, I ended up reaching out more than the 300 followers that I had at the time. It was this one card video that won a contest, which got me some, traction in the card community. First of all, I didn't even know there was a community on Instagram for this kind of thing. I didn't even know communities existed on the internet, really. So from there, I just started posting more and more cardistry, photos and videos, just because it was what I like to do. I all of a sudden just wanted to only do this, because getting feedback and making friends on an application on the internet is one of my favorite things, if not I think it is my favorite thing. It's my number one favorite thing. And I just wanted more of that. So I guess I figured the only way to do that was to put more out there. And that's what I guess I started doing.
It's interesting. It's sort of a different kind of relationship. Like a lot of the old school magic thinkers will be like, the internet is breaking down real connection and all this. You know what I mean? But you're like, the only reason why I do stuff is to connect with people using this tool.
Well, yeah, and it's crazy because all throughout high school, I think it was because of this Instagram realization I had. I became actually pretty upset about Instagram, or not Instagram, but like social media in general, you know, with the mindset that like, yeah, exactly, it's breaking down real human connection, blah, blah, blah. And my high school project, my like final project my senior year was all about the negative effects of social media. And then here I am like living off of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. I guess it's a full circle kind of thing.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things about social media that's so funny is that, you know, it's half media and half social, right? So it's not only just about uploading that content, but really, you know, what's most impressive and what does the best job of indicating that, you know, this is a social platform is exactly what you're saying, is the ability to seek out and find people with similar passions on the other side of the world and be able to actually be social with them and meet with them. And, you know, for me, a very short and funny story, but I was just at a magic convention meeting a magician who we've interviewed on this podcast and who I had never met before in person. And I'm sure you've had very similar situations going to Cardistry Con where you're able to meet people who you might have only even spoke to on the internet or might have only even known, you know, their username.
That is just exactly the quintessential part of why I'm doing all this. You know what it was? It was Magic Con in 2014. Do you guys know Benji Taylor?
No, I don't know the name.
Okay. Benji was real big into cardistry back in, you know, I guess 3 or 4 years ago now. And we would Skype all the time. He was from London, or I guess England somewhere. And we would Skype every day or every chance we got, just talking about cards and magic and stuff. And he, in late 2013, said he bought tickets to MagicCon 2014 being held in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, man. I hadn't bought tickets. And I devised the plan of not telling him that I was coming. So I bought tickets that day. And I think the moment I saw him in the lobby with a bunch of other friends that I knew, he almost passed out. Because he just wasn't, I had told him time and time again that I just couldn't make it this year. It's too much money. Didn't have the time. But then I showed up and it was probably one of the most memorable experiences. But right then I knew that, like, oh man, meeting people that you've only talked to on the internet is probably just the coolest thing in the world.
Absolutely. And, you know, it almost like a nana boo boo to the oldies listening to this, where, you know, we hear these stories where it's like, you know, the magic stories are like a Vernon would travel around finding new bottom deals and all this stuff, which is nice for its time. But, you know, now, you know, we can slide into the DMs of somebody who we're impressed by. And then all of a sudden, however many weeks later, we're on a podcast, you know, talking about whatever, you know, and getting into the details. So I think that it's a good point for never mind making fun of the old people, but welcoming them into this community of being social online and meeting people. You know, all of a sudden, instead of people growing only as fast as their local community, instead, you can grow at as fast of a rate as you can find people and share and be on board.
Exactly.
I think of, you know, the idea of meeting a pen pal, you know, after months and months of writing back and forth, like it's this sort of profound moment, right? And the same thing can be achieved through not even personalized posts, but, you know, when you meet a content creator that you follow and have never had a conversation with, it's sort of surreal whether or not they have a massive following.
It is really weird. My dad would, and I've had this conversation with my dad a lot, and he would tell me the similar story of how he did, when he was my age, he did ham radio operating, which a lot of people don't know what that is, and I still kind of don't. But
I own a ham radio. I'm not quite sure what it is either.
Yeah, apparently it's a radio kit that you can set up on your roof or something, and then you can just scan frequencies, and you'll find a connection at some point. You're guaranteed to, and you can just talk to someone across either in your same neighborhood or Australia. So my dad made friends with this guy in Switzerland, and they would always just talk, and they never met, but apparently they were best friends. So it's the same kind of thing.
What's so funny about that is, they had necessarily the only thing they had in common is having a ham radio, which now not only can we find people on the other side of the world, but they have the same interest as us, and that will flourish and somehow show its face in different ways. And one of the ways is, for example, Cardistry Con. So I know that, when we spoke to Anna, who is the other cardist who we've had on the podcast, she was talking about really how incredible Cardistry Con was and is, because it is the sort of the meeting place of an art that took place really mostly online through lenses and through computers. So can you talk a little bit about Cardistry Con?
Absolutely. So my first Cardistry Con was the Brooklyn one in New York in 2015. And I went with my mom because she just wanted to go to New York, but also was a big fan of what I was doing with cards and stuff. So, I just remember being so excited because I had already experienced MagicCon the year before, so I knew kind of what was gonna be like meeting people. And I was in all sorts of group chats with a bunch of friends that I knew that were going, and they're like, "Oh, let's meet up here. Let's go do this, blah blah blah." And it was so surreal pulling up to the venue, and I was one of the first in line just because I was so eager. And people, they didn't really know me by my name, but as soon as I said, "Oh yeah, on Instagram I'm not Shano," they were like, "Oh, I'm this guy," and then I would be like, "Oh, I know you." So I think that's
have to
also
really look closely at their hands to know who they are, right?
Yeah, right. But yeah, that was cool. The whole weekend went by way too fast. This is the first one still I'm talking about, and it was great because it was the first ever time that many cardists had been in one place, and we had a bunch of great talks by the Verts, Dan and Dave, and the headliners that year. And I think that was when we all realized that Cardistry can only go up from here. Because, I view Cardistry Con 1 as like, that was when we all realized that this is a real thing that has real potential to be life-changing, really.
And it's you almost see the pressure of online jamming built up so much that it explodes into the real world, like something that you might not have ever imagined would form a community, finds itself a community online, and then that goes into the real world. And now, cardistry is a thing. There's cardistry meetups just as much as there are magic jams, and it's a whole other world that now exists, and it is thanks to people like you and Dan and Dave and people who are willing to put down the pinky breaks and pick up I don't know enough
the other kinds of pinky breaks,
but you know what I mean. The other pinky breaks. Pick up some pinky breaks and put down other pinky breaks. But it definitely is something that we are seeing in front of our eyes, and
so cool that you went to the first one. Like I'm imagining like the first X Games to ever happen. What I mean? Like,
it was surreal. I had no idea what I was gonna get myself into, and it was just one of the most fulfilling times of my life, I think.
So let's dive in and talk a little bit about cardistry and sort of content creation alongside of it. Something that I just want to mention, which I thought was mega cool before we start talking about, some of the specifics of what you're doing on Instagram. But one of the things that I thought was mega cool is I tuned into a live stream that you were doing with your girlfriend, and you were teaching her and whoever was watching how to do these moves. And that is something that doesn't happen in Magic. No one's live streaming teaching people how to do tricks. There's still this secrecy, and the cardistry community is great for so many reasons, but the other thing that it is, which is so cool, is patient. If somebody shows you a magic trick, often there's a lot of judgment or negativity about how it is and how it compares or things, but everyone knows how difficult it is to do cardistry. And,
of course,
everyone, you see someone do a move and they're like, wow, that's crazy. I could never do that. And the response is like, yeah, you can, like start working on it. Or like, that's close. Yeah. Try putting your finger here. And there's just a lot of sharing and positivity, which helps it grow at such a crazy pace. So I wanted to say first, thank you for being a teacher in the cardistry community. And also, if you could talk a little bit about how open the sharing is in this world.
Yeah, so that's a great topic, because there are boundaries and whatnot that come with sharing. However, I believe that cardistry is meant to be shared. I think it's inherently cool, despite the level of your performance of cardistry. Mm-hmm. And I think the best thing you can do for cardistry is to share it. So obviously, I love my girlfriend very much, love cardistry very much. Why not put them together and get her learning some moves? So yeah, I just thought that'd be a fun thing just for the live stream, and just to, I guess, for me to kind of refine my abilities of explaining and the terms I should be using for lay people. Mm-hmm. I love sharing cardistry. There are, however, myself included, people that will sell their teaching of certain moves or a pack of moves. And there's been a lot of discussion on that. I believe a few years ago or a couple of years ago, there was a Reddit thread on the cardistry subreddit discussing the viability of selling moves and if that's like morally okay. And the conclusion is yes. Because if you're able to create moves that people want to learn, I think it's okay that there's a price attached to it, because you put in time and effort coming up with this move. You probably went through several iterations of the move that looked like crap, and you worked really hard to come up with this jewel of a great move. And that's a whole nother discussion of what a great move is. But I think it's completely justified that you attach a price tag to a move or a set of moves. And it really helps not only this community grow, it helps creators like myself and others have the means to keep creating and to keep producing good content.
Have the motivation to keep going, and also it gives your supporters and followers a very easy way to show their support for you.
Exactly, and there's also some exclusivity that comes with it. You're not just going to be another person that looked at a free download and then can kind of do the move in a mediocre fashion. You're going to be a person that legit spent money. You gave someone money to learn how to shuffle cards in a different way that you don't know how. That's all it is shuffling, really. And yeah, I think payment is completely justified. But the bottom line is, I think sharing cardistry is where we need to go.
One of the most beautiful things about cardistry, which is super different from Magic, that we spoke to Anna about, but I'd love to chat with you about, is I'll try to say this the right way, but how people are moved in cardistry by originality. In Magic, there's a level of saturation, and I don't even know, just the way that Magic is, people hold originality in a different regard as they do in cardistry. And cardistry, people's names are put on the map based on original moves, and as much as there's sales of it, which I think is super important to keep the cardistry community thriving, there's also unlimited lessons online of people teaching their own moves and things of that nature. So can you talk about sort of the creativity in cardistry and how it's held?
Absolutely. So one of the things that makes this a particular move special or cool, and something that you want to learn, is the name attached to it sometimes, because that person has usually developed a style and refined it to a point where it's recognizable, and it's something that you would desire to have. yeah, there's moves that have taken someone's career from 0 to 100 real quick. Happy birthday, Drake. And it's something it's really hard to, especially now since cardistry has been quote unquote real for the last few years after the first Cardistry Con. Finding original moves is not easy, and obviously Oliver and Tobias with anyone and Dealer's Grip I think are paving the way for that. I don't know. Originality is something obviously that you want to have, and that makes your cut special. And it takes a lot of digging and a lot of work on a certain move to find that.
Absolutely, and I think that it's something that the Magic community can learn from, because it's cool to see, in Magic you often see somebody win a competition and, America's Got Talent, and then we look at it and we go, that's a 70-year-old trick. Like what?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right? Like what did this guy add to this trick? Like it's such a shame that these judges don't know. And I mean, obviously we don't see cardistry yet in some of these large scale talent shows, but we will soon. And it's very cool to see how positive and how how much recognition you can get in cardistry by being original and creative, and because there's such this openness to sharing, the growth is just growing at a rate that we've never seen before.
Right. Yeah, it is crazy. Someone can win a relevant game show, a TV show, with a trick that's been around for literally 200 years.
Exactly.
But in the same light, showing a layperson cardistry or an original move that's specific to you, they won't be like, oh, that must be something new that I've never seen. To a layperson, exactly. To a layperson, before you introduce them to really the concepts of cardistry, every single move is essentially the same. You're moving packets, you're moving cards in a way that seems impossible. So in that way, cardistry is kind of just one thing to a layperson until you talk to them a little bit.
So one of the things that we were absolutely shocked by in our last episode about cardistry was the idea of, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but the idea of performing cardistry. I legitimately thought that cardistry is something that takes place over video, that takes place over photo. And then all of a sudden, my eyes have been opened to people performing cardistry for lay people in the same manner that one would be performing magic. And that really opened my eyes to it as, a presentational thing that you can do in reality. So do you perform cardistry for lay people? And if so, maybe we have some cardists who are listening to this. How do you do it so that it's not just, a glorified video, but in person?
Right. I don't go out of my way to perform just cardistry to lay people. Usually at events and gatherings and whatnot, I'll be either hired to do magic or just doing magic, because that's my only, never really learned how to connect to people otherwise. So I'll do a spring. I'll do a spring or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, nice! That's cool, dude. Can you do that again?" And then at that point, I'll go into a small routine. That's I've developed somewhat of a routine that kind of opens people up to the idea that cards aren't just for making one signed card come to the top of the deck.
Right.
I have a good friend named Anthony Whitford. He's on Instagram as Not an Instagram. He's good friends with Anna, actually, too. He has a whole routine, not a long one, but he has a whole specific routine he shows to lay people that introduces them to pretty much all corners of cardistry. Cool. And he also explains it as well, how moves became or came to be developed and whatnot. I know Kevin Ho of the Verts did a performance during his U.S. tour. He, got up on stage and actually did cardistry for people, and it was flawless. Awesome. And it got quite the reaction. I think it definitely has potential to be performed. It's just juggling, Juggling is fun to watch because there's the risk of them dropping it, and then that's the whole point, is to not drop. So it's the same thing with cards, and it doesn't happen in quite the large frame that juggling does in terms of, how high people throw the balls.
Yeah.
It's kind of a smaller scale thing, but I think there is a lot of potential for it to turn into quite the performance art in real time, real
very,
life.
very similar to like contact juggling in terms of the space.
Oh, yeah.
The space that it takes.
Both you and Anna said the way to transition is to do a spring and then have someone ask you a question about what the hell you just did. So I think that's pretty interesting. You need something accessible before you can get into the meat of what cardistry is.
Yes, yeah.
It's funny when I do a spring, people say, "Oh, that's good," and I go, "Oh, thank you. Want to see another card trick?"
Yeah, I do a spring, and they're like, "Oh, can you do that but better?" And I'm like,
Nope.
That's it. You
Yeah.
want to pick a card?"
So let's talk a little bit about in greater detail what is going on Instagram, because not only do you have these incredible photos, but it's the whole thing is part of the cardistry community. It's not just a cool photo with cards, but I'm looking at one now to sort of talk about, but like in one of them, like your hands are fingers. In my absolute favorite one, I don't know the name of this deck of cards, the red stripes. I don't know if that's the name, but that is my absolute favorite image, I think, on all of Instagram, because it's just, I think so, like because it's so cool and it makes the cardistry like pop out really, like it's a 3-dimensional photo in a 2-dimensional. It's just so cool, and I think that there's an opportunity for a wake-up call for people on the online world to not just do what we jokingly call on this podcast crotch magic, which is people uploading videos of them doing whatever it is, whatever trick, whatever double lift, whatever, over their crotch with their computer camera pointed down. And, your Instagram page is a beautiful example that you can step outside of just doing the thing and make it creative and interesting and beautiful.
Oh, well, thanks, man. That means a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've always been into Photoshop, and I can't find a time. I can't pinpoint a time that like made me get into Photoshop a lot. I've always seen the tools there, and I've just been like, well, just what if I did this to the image? And I've always been kind of obsessed with making things look otherworldly, you could say, I guess. So that combined with my love of cardistry and cards is kind of a match made in heaven, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, man. I love making things that make people think and I guess really make you feel something. And that sounds real emotional, and it's going to turn into a TED Talk here in a sec, but yeah, I don't know. You can look at a photo and you can register the photo as those are cards, and he's holding them in a position that is like Sybil. I recognize Sybil. It's a photo of Sybil. But for example, the photo of where my hands have little hands on them, my fingers have little hands. That, like, to me at least, grosses me out a little bit. It's freaky.
Yeah, sure.
And there's something inside of me, and I hope a lot of other people, that like it makes you feel a little uneasy because you're recognizing a hand. Your brain is like, yes, that's a hand. I have a hand. But at the same time, you're seeing these things attached to your hand, and sometimes when I look at that particular photo, even for me, my hands start to tingle a little bit because I'm like, because there's not supposed to be little hands on your fingers,
Yeah. It's like that scene from Doctor Strange. It's just so unsettling.
Yeah, I did another one with my foot was just holding cards. It was my hand.
Yeah, the monkey grip.
I showed that one to Chase Duncan of Pocket Park, and he hates it because it just makes him feel something, And I think that's ultimately what I'm striving for, is instead of just you seeing something, instead of you seeing a photo of cardistry, I really want you to, find an emotion that makes you identify with it, or I do want it to make you uncomfortable. That's part of the interest I have with photography, I guess, is a 2-dimensional thing that you really can't even touch because it's on the internet. Something so small and insignificant in that sense that you can't, physically.
Yeah, it can't harm you in any way. It can't.
It makes you feel something, and that's exactly where I want to go.
Well, I think that's absolutely beautiful, and I think that it's a good message for people online to be creative and to try to push emotion in what they're doing and not just upload a 19th version of the same thing on the internet, because there's infinite space on the internet. Let's fill it with good stuff.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about on this is the ability on Instagram to really form a community and to be a part of one. The world of hashtags has absolutely changed everything. It's changed. You can search a hashtag and find relevant people and relevant images. And so I just want to ask, where do you sort of find your community? Is it mostly on Reddit? Is it Instagram? Is it everywhere? And how can somebody be a part of that?
It's for sure Instagram for me. It's my, it's a world outside of the real world. It's inside of this little box I keep in my pocket. That's a phone, and it's just you can have so much interaction and share so much and change so much in this little world that everyone else is tuned into. Hashtags have amplified that. Hashtags are organizational tools. You tag something. For example, I'm in Portland. If you search the hashtag Portland NW, like Portland Northwest, you're going to get all the best photos from all the best photographers that have taken photos in this region.
Right.
If you search the hashtag Cardistry, you're going to get the most recent and relevant Cardistry posts. Mm-hmm. So in that way, we've kind of figured out how to push certain pieces of content to one side of the internet and into other boxes so that they're easier to access and easier to see. And we're all just hanging out in a room full of these boxes, of hashtags, really. It sounds so weird to say, but that's exactly how it is. And yeah, I don't know. We've just built such a great community online of people who are friends with each other and who are, I think the biggest thing is aware of what's going on online and with other people.
That's awesome. And I really liked that you said that it is a organizational tool, hashtags, because that's really what it is. It allows us to reach into whichever community that we want to be a part of, whether it's a local community or whether it's a community based on a shared interest. And necessarily we're not just finding someone on the other side of the world who has a ham radio, but rather we're finding exactly the people that we are looking for to have the same interests as we do and who have the same passions and things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say to, an old-fashioned magician? And I think that we've sort of started to come around with great answers to magicians who are, against cardistry. And I think that, there's different worlds, there are different things, but there's still a lot of people that have their nose up to what's going on in the cardistry community. What would you say to somebody who doesn't feel good about it?
Just be more open-minded. This cardistry, a deck of cards being moved in a particular way has changed people's lives and has given people, these opportunities that he wouldn't normally get if you weren't shuffling cards. I know that there's some dissent towards cardistry, and I think Jay Sankey kind of perpetuated that.
He did come out and apologize for that. To
Well,
give him
yeah,
credit. But I mean, at the same time, the video exists.
It exists, and it's just it's so funny that these people think that like it's meaningless, and I can't be mad at that, I guess, because I get it, but at the same time, I wish in my heart of hearts that they would just take a second to look into it a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like it makes you I don't know how to say this without being mean, but like I lose respect for someone who
For sure.
will look at cardistry and be like, that's dumb, or
Well, just have a
that's
closed
not.
mind about anything 100%.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Well, if you think cardistry is dumb and like it's not worth it, and magic is the is the only way, then
The only thing to do with 52 cards is magic.
is just magic. Seriously,
And
reconsider.
games. I mean, the original
Of course.
purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a good message, which is, not only, it seems like it's a conversation about cardistry, but it's not. It's a conversation about, the norms changing, and that anybody can do anything, and that, the internet is a really fantastic opportunity for us to explore that. And, if you don't like cardistry, be a part of a different hashtag, like it doesn't impede on your life for other people to be doing things in their own world. And I think that it's a community that's going to grow whether Jay Sankey likes it or not.
Exactly.
So I want to chat a little bit about playing cards. I know that with cardistry, obviously, the same way that skaters care about their decks, magicians and cardists, most importantly, care about their decks. And it feels as if, the explosion of playing cards rides partially along the wave of cardistry. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I just want to call to attention the fact that the two, the art form that cardistry is most like uses the same term for the most important part about it, like decks.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? So cardistry has opened up a lot of new avenues for cards specifically for cardistry, and I think Zach Mueller did a great job of kind of kicking off the idea that you can have a custom deck. The Red Fontaines, I think, were a product of late 2013, I want to say.
Feels right.
Around late 2013, all of a sudden this kid who was a part of Theory 11 comes out with these cards that just have two Fs on them. And then, look at where he's at now because of that. And all of a sudden people realize that, I don't have to just shuffle bikes all day. I can look at these tally-hos. Oh, look at this version of tally-hos. Look at this deck I got that's red and has two Fs on it. And then I think it just made sense. I think it finally clicked to people. It took one person to be like, yes, it's okay to do this. For other people to realize, well, why don't we just make a deck that has some functionality towards it when you use it with cardistry?
Right. And that's something I think is huge. Like, there's so many decks that are designed to work well with Magic, but the idea that you can create an optical illusion within an optical illusion is something that really opened up the world to creativity.
It's a big tool that people use for self-expression, and just to have something that you can say that you designed and you went through the whole process of like getting funded and everything is a big thing, and something that I think I want to tackle at some point. But yeah, I think there is a lot of potential with repurposing design for functionality within cardistry.
Yeah, and it's also speaks a lot. Like, I think a very important point that you mentioned was the self-expression, because, it lends itself into the way where there's sort of this underground punk mentality of the skateboarding world with, trying to one-up each other and work together and work on, newer, more exciting, more difficult moves. But there's also this sort of fashion element to it, the same way, you become if you're really into hip hop, you dress a certain way. If you're really into EDM, you dress in rave clothing. You know what I mean? So there's this sense of identity that's formed around not only the card moves you do, but the cards you use to do those moves.
Exactly. And that kind of opens it up to a discussion about culture and like what the cardistry culture is.
I would love to dive into that. We've had it's something that I'm just on the cusp of understanding, but I haven't, I'm not into it the way I am into the Magic community.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's just, I don't know. It's the first culture where I realized like it's a culture, it's not just a bunch of friends doing things across the internet. It's a way you start to carry yourself, and it's a way you interact with others, I think. And it's perpetuated by the cards that you use and the people who you're influenced by in the cardistry community. I think it rides along the same lines of kind of the hypebeast community with clothing and the exclusivity of it all. And sometimes it makes me real mad because I just wish we could all just have nice cards and shuffle them at the same time. But I don't know. There's something really special about being someone that grabs a deck before it's sold out, or has a bunch of one specific deck by a specific brand, and I think
I think of
it's great.
Supreme a lot.
Yeah, that's probably the
limited
number one thing
supply.
people. Yeah, but I think it's great that it's now a thing that these kids not only can do. People can do cardistry. Kids can practice cardistry, but it's a thing that they identify with. Chase Duncan put it really great. We had a good conversation about this before he moved out. Cardistry now is these kids' pop culture. It is pop culture for these kids because there are greats and there are celebrities, if you will, in cardistry, and it's great to follow them, and it's awesome to see what they're up to daily and to just be so obsessed with that. And I think that there's no bad that can come from that. It's just we've created our own little pop culture.
Yeah, and it reminds me, like has been said many times before, but of the skating community, which not only has its own a premise that it's based around, but they also have you can almost recognize a skater if you see them on the street, and they use music that you might be able to recognize as skate music, and cardistry is not just about holding cards and doing stuff with it, but all of the things that have come along with it. And some of it is the
video
development
editing
of cards, exactly.
Yeah.
Video editing, music that goes well with cardistry. And one of the funny things that really opens my eyes to cardistry is when people talk about it, they often use the same word, which is the kids in cardistry, which is funny but also very true. It's a very young demographic right now. I mean, that's because it's very fresh, but I wonder what will happen. I wonder if people won't refer to cardists as kids in 10 years if they're not kids, or if it's something that very easy for young people to get into through the online world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I say kids because I'm actually talking about these young kids. When I was that age, I wish I had a pop culture that I could really be a part of and actually be in,
Identify with.
Yeah, I mean, we see the normal definition of pop culture now is A-list celebrities and singers, whatever they're doing. They influence pop culture. They are pop culture. But we have this microcosm of pop culture, essentially, and that these kids are all involved. They all have a say, They can control whatever they want. And just to be a part of that is something that I think is so special.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's something I think is very deeply rooted in the performance community in general. And because a lot of people start in Magic and then move into cardistry, I see a lot of overlap where there's this need for identity and this need for a tool for self-expression. I
think now more than ever, 2017 as a year, where we are as like a, in like the human race, to be honest.
100%.
It's a TED Talk again, but identity. I mean, we're growing up. Again, these kids are growing up with the internet, and having these tools of social media right there to tell a kid that email was the social media back in the early 2000s is like the weirdest thing to them. So
I remember the update when we were allowed to send photos in MSN Messenger. You know what I mean?
But they're growing up with the ability to communicate instantaneously on a multitude of different platforms. And I think that is,
and I think that really allowed for the birth of cardistry. I'm going to go back to skateboarding, but skateboarding, it took off because of video and magazines, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I don't think really could have happened for cardistry because you wouldn't want to watch the extreme card cutting VHS or look at a photo in a magazine of someone holding cards in a weird way. But when you have this instantaneous, short, very raw, fast-paced growing community of people sharing online, it really gives it the room to grow in the way that it has.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if cardistry would have grown if you couldn't scrub and rewatch a video the way that you can now, in the sense of I don't know what a cardistry VHS would look like. In the sense of, I don't know if you could actually learn from, you have to watch it rewind on your machine as it turns back the tape. it really is something that I'm very thankful for the times. And not only that, but, on the lens of social media, back in the day, everyone tuned into the same TV with the same 13 channels, right? So everybody was a part of the same cultures. But now everybody has their own. They have
Hashtags.
yeah, like you're part of your own community with your own people, and it's not necessarily everybody talking about the new Star Wars movie because it's the only thing. I mean, we still have that now where big messages can reach all the way across the world, but now it's not so strange for you to have your own passions and your own world that you live in and your own pop culture, and not necessarily the Kim Kardashians of the rest of the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's spot on.
So one of the things that I wanted to chat about is learning cardistry. So it seems like the most accessible thing to learn, on the internet. There's just as many tutorials as there are videos, but just in the same as magic, there's the right people to learn from and maybe the wrong people to learn from because it's growing so fast. So what would you recommend if someone is getting into cardistry? Where does one start?
I think one starts with himself and the realization that you're not going to get a cut the instant you try learning it.
Right.
I wish someone had enforced that more when I was learning, because I guess I remember it being the year 2012 and like trying to learn these cuts off of YouTube, and just my fingers would not move the way these people's fingers were, and it was frustrating. It was really, really aggravating. And I started making up my own stuff because of it, and it wasn't the best stuff, but it was a rocky start for me is all I'm saying. I'd say just realize that it's hard, and the fact that you're even learning or taking the time to learn this is great, and be satisfied with that, and I don't know, be patient. Patience is such a big thing in cardistry, especially when you're learning.
I think you have to learn to enjoy the frustration almost.
It's
right?
hard, and it's hard because frustration and like enjoyment are two opposite words.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. For somewhere to start, I guess. I started learning the 3-packet swivel cut, which was completely false, and that got me used to the biddle grip and breaking off packets in biddle, and also how to hold packets. From there, I learned card twirls, and because those were always so flashy and so cool to me, and someone like bootlegged the Verts flicker tutorial onto the internet, so I learned that. Start small. Don't try to tackle Sybil immediately. Learn the basics and learn the foundation of cardistry. Dan and Dave have they put out the basics on their website, and I believe their YouTube somewhere. Learn those and master those. I've taught a couple people and just told them to just carry the deck in one hand or the other for hours at a time, just so they know what it feels like and they know how cards will interact with the user and also each other, the cards themselves.
Absolutely, and I think that it's a good piece of advice that people know to stick with it. If it's something that gives you joy to watch and that you would strive to do it, every single person has gone through the same uphill battle of learning how to do it. Some are more dexterous than others, but each person really goes through that exact same journey of struggling with each and every move, and then with each move, maybe the next one is a little bit easier to learn, but new things are still difficult to learn right across the board.
Exactly. It's if you really love it and if you're really dedicated to it, you will be fine with dropping cards, and you'll be fine.
You'll get there. Also,
it's something that's so fulfilling once you finally land too.
So one of the final things that I want to chat about before we start to wrap up is something that you mention. I mean, I feel that it's playfully, maybe it's not in your Instagram stories, but you joke about, the word content, right? And like creating content and like content, here's content. And I think it's funny, but it's also very, it's very relevant and very telling. It's like, what are you doing today? I'm creating content,
Yeah.
So it's funny, but I'd love to hear you chat a little bit about that.
Absolutely. It's completely a joke. And
thank God. Okay. Phew.
But there is some frustration on my side behind it. I guess it started, I don't know. it feels like the latter half of 2016 and all of 2017 so far has been a bunch of these, big YouTubers have just realized that all they're doing now with these videos and these edits that they take so much time on and these stories that they put together, all it is, there's a word that you boil it down to, and it's just content, right? Yeah. It's consumable content that your consumers and your customers watch. And it's just, I don't know, to me it's frustrating because if I put time into a photo, I spend hours in Photoshop, or not even that, if I spend hours setting up, which mostly for me is just cleaning my room because it's perpetually dirty.
It's my least favorite part of shooting any video.
But if I put so much time into this photo, I'm not going to just call it content because it's not just for you to consume. It's for you to experience, for you to feel. So in that way, I don't know. It's just these people not giving their work the credit that it deserves because it's a photo. First of all, it takes the same amount of time to say photo or video. Just say that,
Yeah.
It is. Yes.
A piece of art is what you've creaed, right?
Exactly.
It's not content,
yes,
it's art.
It is content in the sense that it's something to fill your feed with. It is a thing that takes up space in someone's feed. Mm-hmm. But just call it what it is. Don't negate how much time you put into it. Right. But I guess if you didn't put time into it and you don't give a care about it, just call it content. But for me, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say for me, I put time into what I do, so I'm not gonna, just boil it down to the lowest name you can call something.
Absolutely. And, one of the funny things is and I'll see if my thought about this is right, but, finish the sentence, Tyler. What do you do with a video? The verb. What do you
watch it?
But what do you do with content?
Or consume.
That's right. So I think that it's funny because you look at art. What do you do with an image? I don't know. You look. What do you do with a photo? You look at it. You enjoy it. What do you do with content? You consume it. We're like these beasts eating an endless stream of content.
Get in my brain. I don't want to think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, exactly. Well, that's the thing. We're at this point now in social media or in media in general, where there's a definite line between producers and consumers. And I think the ability to recognize that, which one are you, is pretty important into what you do.
Mm-hmm. And in the same vein, in the Cardistry community, we were talking about originality. There's people who are churning out new moves, and then there are people who are just learning moves at an incredible pace. And the same way as, in Magic, there's creators and, there's only so many Magic advisors that advise for all the same Magic, all different magicians, like Daniel Garcia, a really funny example, who's advised for everyone. So it's funny because, in a similar way, there's only so many Cardistry creators. Right now, the number is large, but as it grows more and more, like the tops, the greats will rise up, and it creates really that dynamic. There's creators and there's consumers, and in Magic, there's performers and there's creators, and there's people who write good scripts and everything of that nature. There's room for everybody.
Exactly.
So before we get to our end, which is we have a whole whack of wrap-up questions, one of the things that I wanted to mention is I saw on a post somewhere you chatting about starting a Cardistry podcast, and I think that you should.
Oh, well, thank you.
There you go. I think that you should. There you go. Let you can replay this as episode 1 or whatever you want. But really, one of the things about it'd be a long intro. One of the things about the podcast is that it's not yet saturated, and there's a few Magic podcasts. More growing every now and then, and I'm all for it as long as people can stick to it, obviously. But there's no Cardistry podcast. There's only a few episodes on random podcasts with a few different people, and that's something that I would love to fill my ears with. So if you didn't hear enough people say you should do it, you should do it.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely in the works. Like seriously.
Good.
And I think it'd be a beneficial thing for a lot of people.
Good.
100%.
That's really
100%.
great to hear.
Just as one last piece of motivation, the thing that I've taken from doing this podcast is that whether or not you feel personal growth from what you're doing, you will receive information from your listeners that shows that what you're doing is impactful. Like
I'm sure you know that as a content creator.
Yeah. So the first in our series of wrap-up questions, do you want to do one at a time, all of us first? Sure. Okay, yeah. So we're each going to go around the circle, I guess, starting with me, then Jonah, and then you, and we're going to highlight something from the episode that we thought was particularly interesting or valuable to the listeners. And I was really, I was taken back by this idea of the need for identity in 2017 space, and how the young people of this world have totally grown up in a different environment than we did, because we were sort of we had the internet, but it wasn't anywhere close to what it is today. And this idea that you're gonna connect with more people based on the content you produce is a very different game, and it's a very different world. I think of my sister just had a baby, so I think of my niece growing up, and they have Google Home. So she's going to grow up in a world where you ask your home what's for dinner, and you just talk to the walls, and the lights turn on and off, and the TV gets louder, and that's going to be normal to her. So
you're describing a crazy person right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know
exactly.
what? Pull up somebody from. You don't do it, but pull up somebody from the dead, from 50 years ago, and be like, look what I have in my pocket, and look what it does. They would think that we are an episode of Star Trek. So I think that's very telling. For me, I think one of the highlights of this episode was, chatting about actually the stuff that you were saying about content. I think of myself scrolling through Instagram, you're like, wow, what a nice photo. Tap, tap, keep scrolling. And obviously, we know how long people spend working on some things. Obviously, some people more than others. And I think that we can all take a moment, if something really impresses us online, bring back up that social aspect. Feel free to tell them how you feel. Feel free to, really start being a part of a community where you're impressed by the content that's taking place there. And just feel free to really engage and not forget about the social part of the media. Let's make sure that we're not just endlessly looking at a random stream of things, but instead that we are engaging with each other and really taking advantage of the online world. And I think that Cardistry is such a beautiful way to see how the online world can really evolve into the physical world, into things like CardistryCon, and just real opportunities for people. Like you said, who in the world would have fathomed that somebody could make a living and have a life doing card juggling? And
exactly.
I say it with those words sillily only to lend to the fact that we live in a world now that anything that you have an interest in, there's other people in the world that have an interest in, and there's a community of it online. And it's just so cool to know that however many years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, could you imagine being one of our parents? Let's say they liked playing Sonic or whatever, and then their parents say to them, gaming, that'll never be real. Go get a real job. And little did they know what happened to esports, you know? So it's just a wake-up call to people that anything that you love in this world, there's other people online who love it, and to really, really get social and not just be a content consumer. If you can't create content, still engage, and still be a part of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
How about for you? What was a highlight for you?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd say a highlight for me would be the need for identity, and that's still an idea I'm exploring a lot, both by myself and doing some extra research. But it's just so crazy. I guess I kind of got introduced to the social media and like the ability to be social on the internet. Kind of when it started, I was able to think for myself and to consciously make the decision to start doing social media. But like you said, there's these kids that are growing up with Google Home and they talk to they talk to the ceiling, and the lights turn on by themselves just by your voice, and that's so foreign to me, and obviously to people the generations before me. So it's just, I don't know, identifying with something that's special with you is important, but I don't know why yet, and I'd like to know why. So when we discussed that and how cardistry is a small pop culture, it really got the gears turning in my head to figure out how I can capitalize on that question. And how to use it. Yeah, it's a huge question.
Yeah, and you know, it's cool because we're talking about something that is evolving in front of us. You know, like it's crazy that, you know, we have magicians on the podcast and they're like, well, you know, 25 years ago when I was sitting at the table with Eugene Berger and blah, 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 blah. And it's beautiful that we're able to pull on decades and decades of experience, but it's a whole other thing that you're going, oh, I remember when I started this thing back in 2015. And it's like, what? Like that was 2 years ago, right? And it's just a wake up call to everybody that things are moving at a much faster pace, and that these communities, you know, evolve in a way that we have never ever seen before, and it's time to jump in and be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the other final parts of the podcast is we chat about the endless chain. Ideally, this podcast goes on for eternity, and one way to make that happen is to make sure that every person on the podcast recommends another person that we should have on. So is there somebody that you would recommend? I'll just let you know that Anna started the chain of cardists on this, and I would love to see you continue it. So is there a cardist who you would recommend for us to have on the podcast and you can put us in touch with?
Yes. Well, there's two. It's either Patrick Vernavis or Chase Duncan.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah. If you could just send us their info, we'll reach out.
Will do.
Another aspect of this is the PSA. So you have an opportunity right now. You've got, I mean, my last count is 1 million magicians listening. If you have all million magicians in the world, and let's say all the cardists too, with their ears to your microphone, and you can tell them something, a PSA, anything from what they should do to what they should not do. We've had things from positive words of encouragement to words like stop doing the banana bandana trick, anything and everything that you can share, you could. So you've got all the magicians and cardists' ears to your microphone. What do you want to tell them?
Wow, it's a big responsibility.
It's probably not true, though, to be honest. There's really not that many people.
I guess, you know...
We're not recording this, by the
way. It all boils down to having fun. You know, think about why you got into magic, or think about why you got into cardistry. It's not because you want to... I mean, maybe it was, and if it was, reconsider your options. But for me, it was to have fun, and it's to make people smile, for you yourself to smile. Because you've spent so much, you're spending time on this one craft, and at the end of the day, when you finally land the move, or when you finally get that reaction from your spectators, it's fulfilling, and that's exactly what you're working towards. So just remember, this is all, at least for me, this is all about having fun, and not to take things too seriously. There should never be any conflicts in cardistry, or magic for that matter. It's all in good fun, and it's all really about entertainment and entertaining yourself and entertaining others.
And I really like that, entertaining yourself. You know, what we're doing is playing. You know, whether we're playing with cards or playing with each other in magic, we're all just playing. So to always remember that, because sometimes things can get a little too serious, and I love that, to really keep in mind to have fun. One of the other last parts is a question of the week. We've got a lot of listeners who like to be active, and whether they share their comments with us or it just gives them something to think about, we have a question for everybody to share. So you've got the entire audience's ears to you. What question do you want to ask them?
My question is, think about the way you use your social media right now, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Think about how you're using it, and think about a new way you could use it. Start breaking out of the box that you're in and the routine that you do. Think about something else that you can do that can maybe cause a rift, or cause a chain reaction into a whole other set of opportunities.
That's beautiful, and I think that we see it happening in cardistry and in magic. You know, people just show up doing something new, and all of a sudden they absolutely explode. So sort of newness, is such a big aspect of all of this that I think that's something that should be highlighted, and I absolutely love that. And the last and final section is the plugs. Tyler and I are a bunch of plugs. No, I'm kidding. You can plug anything that you like. So aside from I'll do this and tell absolutely everybody to go follow you, not Sean O, even if you really hate Cardistry, to be honest, even one of those people that we were making fun of, Jay Sankey, I don't mind if you're listening, you should still go follow him, because honestly, these images and these videos are beautiful, and it's just, when I scroll past my feed and I see it, I stop. I know it's you, not because of the name in the corner, but because no one's producing images like this. And it's just something really positive. So that's my plug for you. But if you have something to plug, where should people go to buy it or find you or whatever?
Yeah, I guess my Instagram is probably the best place to go. It's not Sean O. I am going to be selling shirts soon. I'm wearing one right now. I'm starting, I've had this brand called Idle Hands for the last almost 2 years, and it's just been my creative outlet of Cardistry, and it's going to be a lot more than just Cardistry. I think it already is. So
beautiful. Just
be on the lookout for that. Other than that, that's all I got.
And you have a product out, the one that you were chatting about earlier, the modus operandi.
Yeah. So please go buy that. If you want to learn how I do what I do with Photoshop and how you can start doing that and thinking outside the box, go download Modus Operandi. It's about 2 hours of download. And it's $13 right now, as opposed to $30. So it's a little over half off. It's linked in my bio, or you can go to idlehands52.com/modus, MODUS.
That's awesome. And, one of the things that I just want to highlight before it's done is that, we're in a whole different world now where people aren't just buying your Cardistry to say that they want to learn the moves, but rather, they're learning how you're creating the stuff that you're creating. Look how deep and meta this whole thing is, that, you're not teaching people how to hold the cards, but rather you're teaching people how to make stuff that's so beautiful and so consumable, and so gorgeous, and how they can do some of the similar stuff that you're doing.
I think I'm going to buy it.
Please do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for joining us on this episode. And of course, a big, huge thank you to people at home for tuning in and for, not spending more time buying tricks, but instead listening on how to make what you're doing better. If you're a cardist, you were probably shuffling while you were listening to this, so that's cool. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, we'll give it to you.
Yeah, we'll give it to you. We'll give you this one. Usually we get the magicians to put the cards down, but you know what? We'll give you this one
we know
for the cardists. We know. And of course, a big, huge thank you to you, Sean, for joining us.
Yeah, man, this was awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And we will see you all next week on Discourse in Magic.
Well, there you have it, episode 87 of Discourse in Magic with Sean O. I hope you're inspired to create more content and start sharing the stuff that you're doing with the world, because you can meet people anywhere in the world that have the same interests and passions as you do. Do me a favor, if you haven't yet, go to Instagram right now and follow @NotSeanO. His photos and videos are absolutely incredible, and you deserve to see that high-level content in your feed. Oh, by the way, while you're on Instagram, do me a favor, head over to Discourse in Magic and follow us too, because we're producing some cool content ourselves. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next Thursday.